Welcome back. This lesson is super important because we're diving into algebra like head first. It's not really difficult if you think and like put some effort in, but if you're just like gonna try to blow through it, you're probably gonna have some issues. So I want you to think for a second. Don't look at all that yet. I want you to think. 5 times 5 is 5 squared. We know that, right? We also know it's 25, but we can write it as 5 squared. 3 times 3 is 3 squared. X times x is also x squared. So the number of x's is the exponent. Exponent, okay, that's dumb. Also y's. Like if you have y cubed and then y to the first, or just y, there's 4 y's there, so that ends up being y to the fifth. And we'll see how that applies in the lesson, but I want you to think. We're kind of collecting x's and collecting y's, collecting those numbers, and using the variables or the exponents to find out what our final answer is going to be when we multiply them. Also remember that when we're multiplying, I think we did this last week with scientific notation, when we had 10 to the 5th times 10 to the 7th, we kept the 10 and added the 5 plus 7 and got 12. This is the same thing here. If we have y to the 3rd and y to the 1st, why did I put 5? Wow. Y to the 3rd and y to the 1st, we end up with 3 plus 1 is 4. So we're using that principle, only we're multiplying a bunch of crazy letters, okay? So starting off, we actually don't have the same letters here, so it gets easier. All you do is you multiply the numbers, keep the signs with the numbers, and then just keep every variable. So -2 times -3, 2 negatives, so they become a positive when you multiply. You're not adding, these are right next to each other, right? They're the parentheses. 6, and then we keep the x and we keep the y. And that's basically it. That's a basic one, but we're gonna get into some very not basic ones right away. So here we go to example 1. Example 1, -3x squared, y. Y though, right? And then we have 2x and -4xy. So this looks daunting, and it is, but we're just going to, remember, okay, I want to just be clear. Remember when I said the stuff about like terms last week? That's when you're adding and subtracting. And remember there was a plus or a minus in between every term? There's no longer a plus or a minus. We're not adding and subtracting anymore. We're multiplying. And multiplying gets a lot easier because you could just, slap things next to each other. Like 3 times x is 3x. 3 times y is 3y. You could just put them right next to each other. You don't have to try to combine them in whatever way. So right here, first things we do is we're just going to multiply the numbers. So -3 times 2 is -6. And I'm going to keep going. -6 times -4, 2 negatives, so you'll end up with positive 24. So here's how, I'm not even kidding. I'm just going to cross out the numbers because I did them. And that's kind of dumb and maybe, I don't know, but I did it, so we're going to stick with it. Now we're going to put all the x's together. There's 2 here, there's 1 here, and there's 1 here, so we're going to end up with x to the 4th. And then the same thing that I'm doing this for visuals. The same thing with y's. We have a y here and a y here, so we have y squared. So if you just take it step by step, it's not that difficult. Just do the numbers and then do one number and do the next, or one letter and the next letter. So 24x to the 4th, y squared. And that is all there is to it. You can't do anything else. You can't put the x's and y's together. Remember we talked about like terms? You can't make this, x to the 6th or whatever you want to say, or even xy to the 6th. You can't do that. Just leave it as it is. Which takes us to our lovely example 2. You're like, forget x and y. We're doing a's and b's now. -2ab times a squared b times 3b cubed. Okay, very first thing, multiply the numbers. Now we know there's an invisible 1 here. Does 1 really change anything when you multiply? Well, the identity property of multiplication says that when you multiply by 1, it doesn't change the identity. That was just a little plug for properties. So we take the -2 and we take the +3 and we end up with -6. And that's what you do with your signs. You multiply the signs with the numbers, because letters and signs gets a little crazy. Now let's go to the A's. There's 1 here and there's 2 here. So there's 3. B's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, B to the 5th. And that's it. I think it's easy once you get the hang of it. Okay, now we're gonna get into something a little more difficult, but y'all are smart, not worry about it. You got this. Example, excuse me. Remember power of a power? You may not, and it may actually have been another class that I said this to. So when you have a power raised to a power, for instance, what you do is you multiply the powers. It might sound weird, but it ends up being 3 to the 6th. Okay, so if you didn't know that, a power to a power is multiplied. So we're going to use that knowledge as we go into the next portion of our lesson. We have 3xy squared. Now, don't be dumb. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. Don't just breeze through it and times 2 times 2 times 2. I want you to think what this means. 5 squared means 5 times 5. 3xy squared means 3xy times 3xy. So it's not 6, it's 3 squared, which is 9. X squared, x, y squared, y squared. Because we're squaring everything. So you can write it out like this if you're used to seeing, okay, there's 2 x's and there's 2 y's, or you can just square everything. Okay, so this is the same concept, except now we kind of understand it a little bit better. Take a look at it, my masterpiece. I'm so sorry how cringy some of these videos are. I say stuff. It's easier when you guys are here and I can like talk to you and get some reaction and feedback. When you're not here, it's just me in my mind. Okay, so here we go. 3x squared, y cubed. But wait, that entire thing is squared. So we're squaring everything, and remember a power raised to a power means multiply. So 3 squared, that's not, it's just 9, right? X squared to the squared is x to the 4th because you multiply. Y cubed to the squared is 3 times 2 is 6. So, excuse me, all you're doing is multiplying the exponent by the exponent and then squaring the number. So it's not very, like I said, it's not very, very difficult, but it is a matter of trying to, get used to it. Okay, so there's one example 3. This is the hardest one. The final boss, and I say that all the time, so forgive me. Negative 3a squared b cubed squared. Pause. Negative 3 squared does not mean 3 squared. It means negative 3 times negative 3, which is actually positive 9. So remember, negative times negative is a positive, so you might have to think for that one a little bit. A squared to the 2 is a to the 4th, and then b to the 6th, just like always when you multiply. So for the first ones, we were just adding up all the x's and y's, right? Because there was no powers to a power. But if it's a power to a power, we have to multiply. And so I did a couple of the examples for you because I know that the practice set is not always easy right after. So I did A and B. A was negative 3xy. No, it wasn't. It was negative 3x times negative 2xy. And so positive 6 x squared y. Can you see where I got that from? I hope so. And then B had the 3x squared times xy cubed. Well, there's nothing to multiply 3 by, so just keep 3. 3x's, 3y's. Those are the easy ones. There's a few more of those easy ones that you still need to complete. I'm going to hop over to E and F. Actually, I'm going to do them right here so it's easier to see for you. I know it's easy to watch me do math all day, and usually I would make you guys come up. You know how I am. But obviously I can't do that right now. E is important. Hey roosters, do you hear them? They're so loud. Now, this negative can be very confusing. So what I want you to do is I want you to put a 1 automatically. So you realize, oh yeah, the negative is just multiplying by all the numbers. So -1 times 1 times 2, you end up with -2. And then there's 2 x's. Let me make sure, because I've been known to copy things wrong before. 2 x's and then 4 y's. I believe that's right. The biggest thing there was to know that just because there's nothing there, you still put a -1 so that you can multiply with the numbers. Because all of those negative signs are easy to get rid of if you just multiply with the numbers. And then last one I'm going to do is f. I guess I'll write it here. -3m, -2mn, and m squared n. So take all your negative and your negative is going to end up +6. 1, 2, 3, 4 m's and only 2 n's. And that's it. The only time it gets weird is when you have to raise a power to a power that you multiply. But other than that, you're just counting how many there are, and that's what the exponent is. So if you have any questions, drop them below. Let me know, but I think you'll be fine. You're doing a great job, by the way. Thank you for all your hard work. Have a good day.